Part 2 with Theo Fleury.
It's so important so that the system doesn't keep getting broken, right?
Yeah, because trauma is at the core of every single issue we have in society, right? Like you mentioned North Korea. You don't think that Kim Jong-un is not traumatized?
Oh, he looks traumatized.
You know
No,
what
it's
I mean?
true.
Living in that type of environment, that's just trauma, day after day after day after day. And then you look at the president of the United States, and if you just do a little bit of background history on how he grew up, he's traumatized.
Right.
He's all about ego.
Oh.
We have a guy in Canada, same thing, Trudeau.
Oh, right.
He's traumatized too, because it's all about ego. And guess what? You cannot lead anybody with ego. Nobody will follow you if you have too big of an ego. But if you have compassion and humility, people will follow you to the ends of the earth.
That's
and
right.
somehow that's gotten flipped upside down.
Well,
for
you're
some
right.
reason.
Well, you're right. It's because everybody wants to be something, and they think it's
you can still be something,
right,
and be humble and have compassion.
Oh, I agree with you.
If you look at the Dalai Lama, that's a perfect example of somebody who lives a life of compassion. And Jasmine, where I've learned the most and been taught the most about compassion is as I visit maximum security prisons now, and I speak to the inmates, is something that I absolutely is one of my most favorite things to do. And those guys have taught me more about compassion than any group on the planet. Why? Because we're the same.
That's right.
They're trauma survivors, every last one of them. And I would say probably more to the extreme trauma side than anybody else on the planet. And we just forget about those guys.
That's right.
Lock them up and throw away the key. Well, no, they're human beings.
Oh, absolutely. I had a family member pass away who actually, Theo, I'm doing a hockey tournament in his name, and she passed away in prison. So believe me, I know firsthand, people just forget about them. And honestly, they're some of the smartest people I've ever met. They just went the wrong way.
Absolutely.
They just took the wrong path. They had the trauma. They didn't know how to handle it. Maybe they saw a bright future somewhere else, and it ended up in prison. So, man, I love what you're doing. So, how did you get into talking to people in prison? What does that look like? How do you help? Tell me about that. It's so interesting.
Well, when I looked at the cycle of trauma and I looked at the cycle of abuse, because 98% of pedophiles that get out of prison reoffend. So I was like, well, why aren't we getting these guys the help that they need while they're in prison, so that when they get out, they're not reoffending again? And having the opportunity, like, for me to even put it out there that I was willing to go and speak to pedophiles in prisons and murderers and rapists and child molesters and all this stuff. 5 years ago, if you would have said I'd be doing this stuff, I would have said, you're out of your mind. There's no way I'm going anywhere near that place. But, I really needed some clarity, and I needed some more education around what we need to stop the cycle of trauma. And I went, here's a forgotten group of people that, that they are eventually going to get out. And if they stop offending, if they stop committing crimes, et cetera, if we can give them tools while they're in prison so that when they come out, it gives them a better chance of being successful and not returning, then why wouldn't we take a look at that? And what I what I saw and what I learned from these guys was like incredible. That at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and
That's
we're
right.
all gonna make mistakes. And you know, and I'm no different from them, right? You know, I remember the first prison visit I was there. I was speaking to 300 inmates, and I stopped halfway through my speech because I was looking at all these guys, and you know what? I was looking at I was looking at myself in the mirror 10 years ago. Sadness, emptiness, loneliness. You know, I know what that feels like, and it just stopped me dead in my tracks. And yeah, it was an amazing experience, and like I said, I've probably learned more from those guys than any psychologist that I've sat down with and and had a conversation
Right.
with, right? You know,
Yes.
because they can relate, and
That's
because I was able to get to sort of the vulnerability of my story, it allowed these guys to find the courage and find the strength to start, talking about their own stuff.
yeah. And I'm sure it was so healing for them to have someone that, like, somebody actually cares about them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean, like you said, it's just so sad. It's like, you watch those ASPCA commercials and oh my God, you always cry, right?
Yeah,
They show
of
those poor
course.
pit bulls. It's like that.
Yeah.
And just throwing away people in society, just like old people. It's just
Yeah.
terrible. Again, I just think what you're doing is so important.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
at the end of the day, this is what I was meant to do. This is the reason why I was put on the earth, right?
Mm.
And, I look at all of those things that happened to me as a child and as an adolescent and as an adult, and I look at all that stuff, and I see it as gifts now, you know?
Yeah.
I found the gift in the pain, right? And
Yeah.
when you find the gift in the pain, that's when you can help people. That's when you can relate to people. That's when you can meet people on their level because you've been there. Like, yeah, my hair's done and I got nice glasses and a nice shirt on, but I know what it's like to go 6 or 7 levels down in New York and hang
Yeah.
out with the people that are in the most pain. I've been there, but those are the people that I relate the most to. I don't relate to the CEO of, anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I don't relate unless he has the same story, you know?
Yeah, right. And it's all about the story. So, I think when I asked you to interview I was coming off going to a Tony Robbins event, and I think I shared the story with you that I was just really surprised of the number of business owners and business people that were there. Cause the way that they sell that event, and I love Tony Robbins, I love him, but, is that, it's for like the common person who, I mean, it's all about unleash the power, right? Like you're afraid to do something. And I put it out on Facebook that I was going, and every single business person was like, "Oh, I'm going to be there. Come to my section." I was like, "What the hell is this?" So it's interesting, right? I think that, from what you're doing, it can support anybody, So yeah. So tell us a
Absolutely.
little bit about, can you tell us about your speaking engagements, where you are, what your plans are for those? I just love what you're doing. So tell us about that a little bit.
Well, I am speaking to you from a hotel room in High Level, Alberta, which is about 8 hours north of Edmonton.
Wow.
And,
Seriously up there.
and, I would say that 40 to 50% of my business is done in helping the Aboriginal community of Canada.
Oh.
And I'm spending the week up here, and I'm visiting 3 very remote communities up here, and they have a lot of sexual abuse history up here. They have a lot of drug and alcohol addiction, and lots of relationship stuff, and so I just talk about my own experience of how I was able to sort of overcome all of that, and and then just have a bigger conversation with the audience at the end when I'm done speaking. And you know, it's really been truly amazing. And you know, I'm an Aboriginal person myself, and something that I'm incredibly proud of, and I take a lot of pride in that. And you know, what's happened in me visiting these communities is that the elders who I've listened intently to, they've given me my life back spiritually, you know, because when we're abused, when we're sexually abused or verbally abused or emotionally abused or bullied in school or whatever, what happens is our spirit dies, right? And so the way back to finding yourself is, you know, body, mind, spirit, right? And all three have to live, you know, in harmony. And, you know, I'd focus so much of my recovery on, you know, the body and the soul, I forgot about spirituality because I was mad at God, right? Which most of us are.
Right.
And, you know, as I started to participate in the spiritual ceremonies of these communities that I was visiting, my life changed. You know, I sort of got beamed into another dimension that I didn't know even existed, you know? And so, yeah, it's been an incredible experience. So, you know, when I speak, I not only speak about my experience, but I also speak about the process of healing yourself, right? Which is, you know, self-forgiveness, self-love, humility, compassion, giving back, spirituality, you know, all these things I think, because we get going so fast in this life.
Oh, it's too fast.
Because we think that success has a dollar figure attached to it. Well, it doesn't. Success is me, body, mind, and soul. And are all three of these things living in harmony together? Because if they're not, you're not successful, right? If you're the CEO of the biggest company in the world and your kids hate you, you're not success, right?
It's true. Yeah.
You know, you can be a Disneyland dad all you want because you have the money to do it, but that's not what your kids want. Your kids want your full 100% undivided attention when they're with you. That's it. That's it. Doesn't matter how many cars you buy them or how many vacations you take them on. Doesn't matter. You know, it's about personal connection. And to me, spirituality is not about a white bearded guy in the sky, right? Because I don't understand that. I don't understand that concept.
Yeah.
But to me, spirituality is all about relationship. The one I have with myself first. And if I have a great relationship with myself, guess what? Every other relationship I have in my life is going to be great as well.
Oh yeah. Wow. That's really true, you know, and that kind of goes back to what we're talking about with the system, right? Because if we're all every single day in our minds thinking, oh, well, we need to make money and we need to beat this person, right? Not to be a downer, but it's true. And we need to be better and we need to be bigger and we need to buy this. And then, you know, CPG is going crazy. We're going to buy this and that and the other thing. And then the kids think the same thing. Then how are you ever going to take the time out, actually, right, Theo, to find spirituality? I have a friend that's an executive coach, and I really like him a lot because he's spiritual in his practice, and he talks about getting to the point of humility, and he talks about raising your bar of energy. And we had this conversation once, and it was very long, but it was about, like, you know, I could talk forever, but it was about, you know, in the lowest level, you know, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So the lamest, to me, lowest level is this ego level. And then the highest is the giving back in humility, right? And it's like, if we could just take time out to be able to free ourselves to get there, you know? So do you have any tips or advice to people that are, you know, just 100% focused on the ego and the money and I can't get to, you know, because I just know a lot of them. I can't get to the humility level. Is there a place that they could start?
Yeah, just get on your knees every morning and pray to something, you know?
Yeah.
You know, what
Right.
like to me, I don't care what you believe in because it's none of my business.
Mm.
Spirituality is a personal journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? That I believe that spirituality is the law of attraction, not promotion. Okay.
Oh, I love it, Theo.
And so most religions are all about promotion, but it should be about attraction, right? So if I'm improving the quality of my life by going on a personal journey of body, mind, and spirit, then I'm going to attract a lot of people. Why? Because most people saw me at the bottom. Most people saw me at my worst. And now people see me differently. My eyes are brighter, my head's up, you know, I walk differently. And people go, well, what have you done? Like, what have you done? Like, how did you do this? And now that opens up a new conversation, right? But if I'm shoving this stuff down people's throats, left, right, and center, they're going to run away from me.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But if I just live humble, compassionately, all that stuff. But I think the first thing you need to do, if you're that kind of person, is you need to get your ass down to a shelter and you need to help. That's the best thing that I could ever suggest, is that go help somebody who is less fortunate than yourself. Yeah. And that teaches you about humility, and that slows you down because you go, holy cow, like here I am racing around trying to be successful and make money and all this stuff, and I don't even realize that I'm in the minority of people. Right? Because the majority of people are in poverty, they struggle to pay their bills, et cetera, all the time. Yeah. And as you, who is somebody who's motivated and educated and all that, you can be a great advisor to this person to help them change their situation.
Oh, yeah. And you know, it's funny that you say that, because I think, you know, you're your best self when you're helping others. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you just are. You just, the time that it's the point that you take yourself out of yourself and then you help others is when you find yourself. And also,
big time.
Yeah.
Well, and it's how you
just
heal.
It. I mean,
it's how you heal yourself.
That's right.
That's it. The more people I've helped, the more I've healed myself. It's that simple and basic. It's not rocket science.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, you have 2 books, right? So the difference between the 2 books, you know, how they've helped people, what people can expect from those books.
Yeah. Well, the first book, Playing with Fire, was just my story, my autobiography, and which was very, very successful here in Canada, not so much in the US because hockey is the 15th most popular sport in America. So
I'm going to change that, Theo. That's my mission.
And you know, the second book is all about the healing process. And you know, I ran into a neuroscientist along my travels. We were both speaking at a conference in Winnipeg, actually Manitoba, about resiliency, and you know, sort of had the same mission, the same focus, all this stuff, and you know, what she told me was that I could rewire my brain, and I was like, what do you mean rewire my brain? She goes, I can help you rewire your brain. I can rewire all of that thinking, all of those neurons that are hardwired into you know, your brain and your nervous system and all that. And I was like, phew, I was blown away. I was fascinated. I was like, show me how to do this.
Yeah, right.
And so, you know, we wrote this book called Conversations with a Rattlesnake. And
Can you tell us about the name? Because I love the name.
Well, you know, it sort of has some Aboriginal connotations to it as well.
Okay.
But so many people think that the snake is the devil.
Yeah.
You know, or the demon or whatever it is. But when we researched, you know, the rattlesnake's not looking for conflict. It's just living its life. And every so often it sheds its skin, it transforms itself and reinvents itself. And I thought, wow, that's such a great way to sort of compare, you know, what I was trying to accomplish is, you know, peeling layers of the skin off and, you know, getting to the core of my issues and then rewiring all that stuff differently this time around, you know. And you know, the brain is has a lot of elasticity and it's very resilient and so yeah. And you know, the one thing about taking a path of healing and taking a path of recovery is there's no such word as healed. It's just healing, and it's gonna, you know,
right.
It lasts the rest of your life. You know, healing never stops. It's a continuum. It's a continuation, because I believe that, you know, from my Aboriginal ancestry, that, you know, when I die, the only thing that dies is my body. My spirit will go on and live forever and come back in many shapes and forms or whatever it is. And, you know, I often say, I want to get rid of all of these problems that I have now in this life so that when I move into the next life, you know, I can live with peace and happiness and joy and freedom and, you know, all these amazing things that I could have never said, you know, 10, 12, 13 years ago, because I was still living in my pain and living in my suffering.
Right. It's like Kabbalism, right? So
Yeah.
it's, yep. So you come here, and I mean, I believe in exactly what you're saying. I do. And it's a more spiritual way of looking at things. So,
Yeah.
right. But that's what it is. And, you know, I was going to ask you before, when you were talking about, you know, the transformation that you've gone through personally, that it is, you know, I was going to ask you about that healing process, and is it a lifelong process, or, you know, is it more short term? And I think that, you know, what it sounds like is that some of that's in that book, right, is about, right, is about the healing process and, you know, how you can, so to speak, shed your skin and evolve and grow, right? A little bit in that book.
Yeah. And, you know, I've had a lot of time to sort of reflect on, you know, a lot of things that I've done in the last 8 years. And I think the biggest obstacle that we all face as human beings is self-abuse.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, after whatever traumatic experience we've experienced, we take over that abuse ourselves, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
we drink too much, we smoke too much, we
Eat
eat too much, we feel horrible about ourselves, you know, all of these things. So we take over that abuse. And so the biggest obstacle that we have to overcome is ourselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm a big proponent of, you know, work on yourself. Work on yourself. And that's, so many people, well, that's selfish. No, it's not. It's
That's
not.
right. Yeah.
It's not, because I have to live in this body, right?
Yep.
I have this, I have to live in it. So if I always feel uncomfortable or not good enough or not lovable or, you know, abandoned and neglected, like,
That's
I got to
right.
get rid of this stuff. Get rid of this stuff, or, you know, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And you know, what people don't realize and understand is that, you know, those of us who experience trauma, the trauma ends up somewhere in our body and then manifests itself in cancer, diabetes, MS, you know, all of these diseases that we have, you know, are because of trauma.
Yeah.
Right?
The body-mind connection is so strong.
Yeah, the more stress we put on ourselves, the more likely it's going to turn up as cancer or, you know, you name it, whatever it is. And so that's why I always tell people, focus on yourself. Focus on yourself. Start to love yourself. Respect yourself. You know, make good choices for yourself, because at the end of the day, that's all you have. And if you don't improve the relationship you have with yourself, the relationships that you have outside, they're not going to be good either, because you know, like attracts like, right?
Absolutely.
And so, you know, you end up in, you know, all of these crazy messed up relationships because, you know, did you realize that when you meet somebody for the first time, you don't meet them in real time.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
We meet them unconsciously. So we have this aura about us that we carry around everywhere we go, and people pick up on that right away. So it's not about the physical attraction. It's about the, oh, okay, I can see everything that's happened to you in your past. I see all my stuff, right? And that's
like that match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
oh, that's so true. That's why you feel like you've met someone, but you haven't met them. No. It's just like, no, it's a common, you're feeling something subconsciously, right?
Yes.
And then you connect with that person. And yeah, when you grow, I think those people, they can't understand what's happening. And then the people that you meet, growth, and that's what attracts them. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. You can't do anything in life until you improve yourself. And like, it's funny, I laughed because you talked about how others see that it's selfish. It's probably because you're saying no, right?
Yeah.
And you're spending less time investing in something that's not good for you. So
should we get another bottle of wine?
Yeah, I'm ready.
No, I'm going to go home because, you know, I got to get up and I got to pray and meditate in the morning. Then I'm going to go work out, and then I'm going to go to work. Right?
That's right.
That's not selfish. That means I'm actually give a shit about myself for the first time in my life, because, you know, when somebody offered me a bottle of wine 15 years ago, yeah, that one bottle of wine turned into a case.
Yeah.
You know? And then from the case, well, we went and scored some cocaine, and then 5 days later, I'm still partying. That's not looking after yourself. That's just managing your pain and suffering. That's what that is.
That's why happy hour exists, right?
Of course.
Happy hour, and it's called happy hour, get it?
It should be called trauma hour.
That's hilarious, but very true.
It is. You know, if you need a drink to calm down whatever you're calming down, well, it's a pretty good sign you might need to go talk to somebody about what's going on.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you. Do you speak to groups? Should people look at your book? Do you do one-on-one counseling? Talk about that a little bit.
I do all the above.
Okay.
I have a website. It's Theo Fleury 14.com, because 14 was my number that I wore.
I know.
I'm on Twitter at Theo Fleury 14. I'm on LinkedIn, Theo Fleury, Facebook, Instagram, you know, all that stuff. And yes, I speak to groups. I do one-on-one coaching. I, you know, I do whatever I can to help people that are asking or needing, help. I'm writing another book right now.
Oh, what is it called? Do you have a title yet?
I think it's going to be called The Power of Me Too, or Sitting in Your Shit. Maybe will be the title of the book. We're sort of trying to figure that out right now, but I have a couple of documentaries out. One based on my book, and the other one is called The Victor Walk. My foundation is called the Breaking Free Foundation.
Okay.
breakingfreefoundation.ca. And what we do is we provide therapy grants to people who can't afford to go get professional help.
I love it.
And then once a month, we do a thing called a meetup in Calgary, where anybody and everybody who is looking for some support or help, we co-facilitate a conversation around trauma, mental health, and addictions, because all three are intertwined and connected.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably been our most successful program, because we actually have had 4 people who have walked into their first meetup thinking that if they had a bad experience at our meetup, they were going to go home and commit suicide. And
wow.
all 4 decided that there was a better way, and they found the support and help they did through our group, and it's been an amazing experience. So yeah, we got lots of stuff going on, and I do some seminar stuff, as well, with my cohort, Kim Barthel, who I wrote Conversations with a Rattlesnake with. We just did a big 4-day conference with a group called Procter and Gamble. Do you know them?
Yes, very well.
Yes. We met with all 800 of their employees and had a massive conversation around mental health or mental wellness.
Wonderful.
And, it was amazing 4 days, and some of the conversations that we had were pretty incredible. Conversations that Procter and Gamble had never had before with their employees. So it was a pretty amazing experience. So yeah.
Well, wonderful. Honestly, to see this here more in the United States. To be honest with you, there's a lot of problems that we have with healthcare, mental care, not enough attention to it. I can tell you, as a CEO of a small, social media and PR agency, even myself hiring people and managing people, the trauma shows its way into the work environment. And I think more people like me that own businesses and we're responsible for feeding other people,
Yes.
we need the tools to be able to hire people, help people through mental problem, trauma. It's a very customer facing field, and people need to be able to, like you were talking about, build relationships, communicate, feel good about themselves. So I'd love to see this here in the US, and obviously I'm happy to spread the word. And
thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I, again, Theo Fleury 14, I definitely would never forget that number. But for those of you that are watching and listening, if you'd like to get in touch with Theo, obviously he's a down-to-earth, easy to talk to person. I'm sure he'd be thrilled to have a conversation with you. You can reach him there. And Theo, I want to thank you tremendously. This has been just the best interview ever for me. And I'm probably going to ask you back on when you have the new book out, if that's okay with you.
Okay. Absolutely. I would appreciate that. And I hope we can work it out where I can be at your event this year as well.
Yes, of course. We need the superstar. All right. So thank you so much. And we will talk soon. Thank you, Theo.
Thanks, Jasmine. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, and I know that you did, please hit subscribe on iTunes and on YouTube. You can also support us through Patreon and becoming a board member. As a board member, you will get early access to episodes, top 5 lists from our guests, as well as various action plans, such as action plans for personal branding online, LinkedIn marketing, and much, much more.